Hey, people. Anytime you're reading the Bible and the story's starting to sound like Brokeback Mountain, you know that's King James interpretation. Ain't nobody ever sold no book about Brokeback Mountain. It went straight to the movies. Ain't nobody want to buy no book like that. And I don't know if the priest that interpreted this was all gay or if it was their misinterpretation it caused them to become gay. But what they've hidden all the feminine words out of here. And they make you think that it's some Brokeback Mountain shit going on with a bunch of guys on the mountain staying all night. But what he actually says is why is bitchy of him is bitching her. You know, why is bitchy? Who is bitchy of him is bitching her. And so, you know, that's bitchy. That means a woman with an attitude, you know, who is bitchy of him is bitching her. Oh, we got something for your attitude. We're gonna bitch you. You're gonna be the sacrifice. Why for all? You know, who for all achieve? ACHIV. The all achieve locale. Who for all achieve locale? Hey, everybody at this location who have achieved on top of the mountain here, everybody gets to sacrifice the bitch. Who for all achieve locale will come, to come, and Jackal will him, the villain of her. So this mountain, the beer, you know, this is just the base word, the ER in inner. And so, you know, on top of the mountain is the brazier was on top of the mountains. And the reason it's written like this, you know, there was one language, and the same guy that was cooking up medicine was using the same language as the sailor, as the same language as the pimp. And so to the jackal will come willing of her. You know, the willing to. And so, you know, a villain, boy, that's the guy who comes to see you and gets a nut and takes off, you know. And a villainoo, oh, that's a girl. She comes to see you and you get a nut and she wants to hang out and let you hold her. Yeah, she's a villainoo. You know, that's a feminine word. And to Jackal will come a villain of her. Will come a villain of her. So they didn't think this story was appropriate, so they turned it gay. But yet, who's the bitch of him is bitch of her. Who called all his brothers, who for all achieve the locale. All the brothers to come to this location. And so this limb, you know, this bread, it comes after the tack. And so it doesn't read the same both times. But yeah, this is where your word stayed all night, you know, the willing and the in. But the first time this read, you know, it's the locale of much will come, of many will come. Who for all achieve locale of much will come, of many will come, to Jackal will him, the villain of her. And you can see that's the base word for this spend the night of the villain. Just the L-I-N here, a Lin. Lin is what's in all of these words. The tailing, get me some tailing. And the villains. You know, in from come the villainsum. They become villains and spend all night. And the villainsum Belial. So all these villain women, you know, they became willing. And willing, you know, meant spend. He paid the whore's price. She was willing. And you can see it here, you know, this lily, word for a whore, a woman of the night, you know. And willingsum in lily, the who wife, W-I-F-H, the who wife, men of have bid to. The men of have bid to, you know, in his hand. You got your money in your hand. You got bid at this wife. And this is the bitumen in heel as the watch, the WACHIV, in heel as watch of. And so this is the pimp here. And all this female goats and goats going on, this is as Jimmy Adam would ism. The Jimmy Adam. Jimmy's when you stick your tool in and shake it around. And so it looks like, the guys that wrote this, they had no word for evil. This is simply the word for the root. And how hammerum of the rootable tuber, the TUBR, the tuber hasm. And so this is where, the root of justice comes from. The tuv, tuv. And the ru is the base word for the evil, just the RO. And it seems to be talking about the dark heaven here. This is the same word for heaven. And so I'm going to come back to this in the next movie. So I don't know that every man has this disease. I joined the Navy when I was 17. I was on a boat with wise ass from all around the States. And maybe about 15-20% would walk away from a good joke. And from my experience, after that, the sharper somebody's dressed, the nastier the joke will be. And while working in Morgan City on the boats, I've learned that some girls can talk just as nasty. And I've read in here several times, that's on the top to catch the lesser mind. But what it says is the writer of this was reaching out to English speakers. And so I know there's other sciences hidden in there with all these marks, but you're going to have to get the English off the top first before you get it. And the face upon the temple, that's your pinnacle. The pinnacle is up on the top, on the peak. And so the people that used to be able to read this, they put their pinnacle on the face of the temple at the front door. Upon the face of the temple is the pinnacle. So being they had all the same language, somebody talking about setting up a tent would be using the same language as an orgy here, the homo woodum. Who femit is the feminine, the feminine part. And, to wife from it, the wife mat, like a laundromat where you go get matched up, the wife mat. And the home would all. And when you read it with this tat, the wife mat midum, midum, in the middle. The wife at midum, and then the OE becomes the OLE. And wife at midum all, the home woodum. It take them all into the home. All and backwards in the pinnacle, and the pinnacle latched, and the pinnacle latch. And so a wife it midum, all home woodum, all in pinnacle latched. This is a all home woodum all. This is the feminine part. It has the holes in it where everything attaches up on this mast. You'll see one on your sailboat that just goes fore and aft to hold the mast up there. But this is, where they all home to. And if you were building a tent, this would be that spot that sits on top of the pole where all your lines come to. And so he set up the pillars, upon the face of the temple, is to wife them at the midum, all home woodum, all in pinnacle. And they're all tied up to the home woodum, to the femit, the one, the receiving end. And the wife from at midum, all home woodum, all in pinnacle latched, in connected, in latched. And my men watched from the small who foursome, and then backwards, in the foursome in 'em, and then back other ways, him in, the foursome enum him in. And this is just two different Bibles. One of them has an extra I here. But the enum and him in. The foursome enum him in. The Yakin was the Yakin was and that's the Greek word for the woman that she's Yakin O's. And this is the foursome enum who the Yakin was the smelly bows. The smelly bows. And so this word, you can see it has the dot up top. If you're reading the upper marks, you're reading this as a B-O-O-Z, a booze, the smelly booze. To get her in the mood, the smelly booze. And that's what they're smelling like. They're yakking was them, the smelly booze. The booze is what's got them talking. And if you're reading the lower markings, this is a O, and the line underneath it says O. And this mark under the B, I believe this is a U or a V, a Vav. And it's where your word voos come from, as in voodoo. And it means to let them fly, the voos. A voos, to flight, to let them fly. And so this word here, this is the names of God. The one on the left is the names of God, to let them fly. And that's what it's talking about when it's talking about the woman in the Greek, and she's gonna yak O's. Well, here she's the yakin was the names of God fly. And so it looks like, the smally with just the letters. But if you read the lower markings, it lets you know that there was a double S and is, and then SI ism. And underneath the M here, this is a OA. And the two A's make it a OEL. And so the shmo is the name which you heard, and the Ali is God. And so this is better spelled, SHMOEL. The Shmoli, his name is God. The SM, they say, is the name, and the L is the God part. And so the only thing that's got us confused here is what God means. What names and what God means is what they got us confused. They say here it's of the one on the left, which is the small on the left, and the Jimmy on the right is what they say. The Jimmy would be the base word for on the right. But they use this Ali in all the Arabian names, and they just say it means honorable, the Sim. And this is similar. SIM, is similar. A name, everything was named to what it was similar to. Oh, that's black. I'm going to call him black. Oh, that's fat. I'm going to call it fat. What's it similar to is its name. And so a sim allez-vous, a parlez-vous français, you, vous, you, and the honorable, the name honorable vous, the name honorable flies, the name honorable you. And so, I love banging this chick, because when I get her going just right, she calls me God. And Yakin was'em the simile vous. So when you see them Arabian names with all the Alis and all the Bens in there, Ben Ali. And so the Ali means, to honor, in honor of my grandfather, my last name. Similar. I was named Luke for my great grandmother. I was simile to Louise. So they called me Luke, Ali, Luke, in honor of my grandmother Louise. The names in honor you. So when I'm flipping through these pages, this doesn't always reset right. But I just learned that I could spot it up here in the small print in case you want to go look at some of these. So, ho femit midum all, home woodum all in. The pinnacle ahead from I'm in. And so the pinnacle ahead, I'm up and ahead of them from I'm in. From I'm in. on the right hand. Everybody's in, give me your hand, I'm in. Your secret club handshake from I'm in. And watched from the small. And so that's when you have your employees left out on the job, and you go sit up ahead where you're not real noticeable and watch back what's going on, what's been left, and watch from the small. Who foursome, in 'em the jammin', Yakin, was'em, ism, olivus. Ism is a belief, and Yakin, was'em, ism, olivus. Alright, I'm going to cut this off here. I'm going to go back to that other verse I was looking at about the dark heavens. I'd never seen that before. Good day.